Okay, I know what you're thinking. Oh my god, Charles Bronson is not only still alive, but making low-budget slasher movies in which he faces off against a Jason Voorhees knockoff. Well, I understand where your thinking comes from right there, because my god, that looks to be the case with this new movie, Cry Havoc. But no, this is a Bronzi movie. Robert Bronzi, the Hungarian actor who, yes, looks exactly like Charles Bronson. Voice, I'll get to in a second. This is the first Bronzi movie I've seen. Now, this is a movie that's also written and directed by Rene Perez, who had done a couple of other of the Bronzi movies. Did Death Kiss, the Death Wish knockoff, and the Once Upon a Time in the West knockoff, which I believe is called Once Upon a Time in Deadwood, or something like that. Here we have Cry Havoc, where, best to my knowledge, Charles Bronson wasn't in a Friday the 13th movie. So this plot strays a little far from from a Charles Bronson movie of the past. Now, what Cry Havoc is it's a simple story of a young journalist, this woman who goes off to interview a fugitive who's on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, because what he does is he kidnaps women under the guise that they are on this reality show. But the truth of the matter is they're sent off into the woods, and this slasher movie beast monster named Havoc, it's kind of like Jason Voorhees but with barbed wire around his face. What this billionaire does, who's played by Richard Tyson from Kindergarten Cop, what Richard Tyson does is he's got cameras set up all around the woods, so he can capture this monster killing all of these women, and then he makes snuff films out of them, and appears to have a very profitable career because of this reality show snuff film thing that he's got going on. Again, he's on the run, he's in hiding from police, but he is giving an interview to this journalist, because snuff film or not, you got to go on a press tour when you're promoting these movies that you do. Meanwhile, Bronzi plays a cop who, no, they have heavy security in this woods compound that they're living in, where Havoc has a giant machete and is hunting reality show contestants. They have a lot of security in there, unless you look like Charles Bronson. Then you can really kind of just get into anywhere that you want to be going. So he just kind of walks in, and he's looking for his missing daughter, who was one of the reality show contestants, who may or may not have been killed by the Havoc beast. One thing I'll say about this, on a positive note, is the effects. Now, in the opening scene, I was a little worried at first, because it opens with this sequence with these bad fire effects going on in the woods. But when it gets to the blood, the guts, the gore, and all that, it's top notch. It looks good. Here you have this low budget movie that's doing these gore effects where people are getting their faces pounding in, their faces ripped apart, limbs cut off, even the squibs and everything going off when in the gun battles. It looks better than what I've seen recently in in a movie that would cost millions more dollars than this movie does. So I gotta hand it. I was getting a lot of entertainment out of the gore in it. There would be a chase or a scene of dialogue, and then just this sudden burst of a person's face getting caved in, or just their heads exploding from being shot. I would get a good, genuine laugh out of it. So that stuff about the movie was certainly entertaining. Where Cry Havoc doesn't work. Now, it's a movie that's fun to describe. Describing this thing about the reality show, and there's cameras set up everywhere. This slasher movie villain is coming through with this giant Silent Hill blade chasing people. Yeah, it's fun to describe that, and that's what the movie does. It's very little for the first half of this movie. When I'm talking about all this stuff with the reality show, the movie is also just describing it. In terms of really showing it, just like tiny little glimpses. And other than that, is a very talky movie in which you have Richard Tyson and the journalist just kind of describing all of this stuff that his character is doing in this long interview that they're giving. It feels like one of two things. One being, it feels like the kind of thing that would happen where it was you were originally supposed to maybe see all of this stuff play out, but maybe the budget's not big enough, so we just need to have Richard Tyson and this journalist describe everything and every plot detail that we should be seeing. Or it also, and I know that this isn't the case, but it feels kind of like when Uli Lamel would take like an existing movie of his and just splice in like interview footage and call it a sequel. It's like, it's like seeing a little bit of that. It makes it a talky movie, and not in a good way, because it's talky not in any kind of character-driven way, but just in an exposition way. They're just describing things about the plot, describing things about the action. And in this first half, really, Bronzi's not in it that much. It's like when you watch one of those Seagal movies where there's main action going on, and then he's just kind of spliced in where he's walking to the destination. The first half is a little like that. Every now and then, Bronzi will show up and be walking, smoking a pipe, or doing a couple things. Now, in the second half, it's definitely his show. Like, in the second half, he's certainly the lead, because once it gets past the talkiness of it, it's tedious in a different way, because then it's mostly just people kind of running around the woods and shooting each other. And yeah, there's entertainment to be had about how good the effects are, and I'll give it that. They are. As far as Bronzi himself goes, yeah, it's entertaining seeing this Charles Bronson look-alike in this slasher movie. And when he finally does talk in it, he's dubbed. He's very obviously dubbed. And he's dubbed by someone doing a Charles Bronson impression. So you have this obvious dub job going on, and because of this, his lines aren't. He has very few lines, which maybe is in keeping with Charles Bronson a little bit, but so it's mostly a lot of the same lines, like him going, "Where's my daughter? Where's my daughter? Have you seen this girl? Have you seen this girl? Where's my daughter? Have you seen my daughter?" Like, it's a lot of that just kind of repeated, so they wouldn't have to do as much dubbing, I'm assuming. So I was watching it going, I want to see one of his movies where they don't dub him. I'm not saying that, like, oh, that means the performance would be good. I'm not saying that, because I'm assuming he's not like a hugely experienced actor, but I'm just saying, like, either way, it's going to be distracting, I would think. So it might as well just let him use his voice, because the dubbing was distracting. It takes you out of the movie every single time. No, whatever movie this guy does next, I want to hear his voice. I do. It would take me out of the movie less, I would think. And Havoc in the movie, I kept having to remind myself what this slasher villain's name in the movie was, which is sad because his name is in the title. Like, what's this guy's name? Oh, right, the title of the movie. So he's your standard slasher villain. You know, they have nods to Friday the 13th where he's carrying a girl out of a lake at one point. There's not, like, if in Cabin in the Woods they wanted to generate like a prototypical Jason Voorhees, you'd have this. You'd have Havoc in this movie. It would probably look exactly the same too. And this is all kind of leading up to this fight between Bronzi and Havoc, and they just kind of punch at each other in the woods. Like, at this point, I kind of checked out, and this didn't snap me back into it. It's just like, you know, they're punching at each other in the woods. Yeah, okay. The other gore and everything going on earlier was way better than anything that was going on in this fight scene. If just this random like soldier dude getting his head blown up and everything like that, if that's what you're seeing earlier, then when you have this fight between Bronzi and Havoc, I mean, you need to go over the top with this. And then this didn't. Again, they're just kind of taking swings at each other, rolling on the ground and stuff like that. I've been watching the Revelation Road movies for the Cinema Snob. And when the fights in those between Brian Bosworth as a biker with a giant freaking hammer doing, like, you know, Trojan horse stuff with a moving car, and then they get out and have a fist fight with Brian Bosworth and David A.R. White, when that's way more impressive, which honestly, like, joking aside, in and of itself, it actually is pretty impressive in those movies. I'm not gonna lie, those movies are pretty entertaining. When that's your top-notch fight, and not Charles Bronson versus Jason Voorhees, I gotta go back to the drawing board on this Bronson versus Voorhees fight a little bit. This is an advanced screening that I got. I believe this is coming out in early May. I don't know how this stacks up between Death Kiss and Once Upon a Time in Deadwood. I've not seen those. This is the first Bronzi movie I've seen, so I'm not sure if this is any better or worse than those other movies. But it's just one of those movies, like, you're better off just kind of describing it to somebody, really, because it's going to make the movie come across more entertaining than it is. When you read the plot and you picture that movie in your head, just stick with the movie that's in your head. You're going to get more entertainment out of that. So, all right, well, give us a follow on Twitter at the Cinema Snob. Also, subscribe to our channel here at youtube.com/StoneGremlinProductions and click the notification bell as well. Check out some of our other reviews. Thanks a bunch for watching, guys. See you next time.